what did I just watch? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the film is bad, but that was my reaction coming out of the theater, and my reaction throughout the film. It's just like, what am I watching? What did I just... what? Because that's how it felt. That really is how it felt. The best way to describe this film is that it was essentially directed by some sort of unholy love child of Quentin Tarantino and the Coen brothers. Basically, it just feels like something that's both making fun of film itself, but also just feels... just, I don't know. I just don't know how else to put it. Essentially, it's like a combination of Tarantino and the Coen brothers. Now, the story is kind of... I mean, it's fairly straightforward when you really take the time to think about it, but as you're watching it, you're just kind of like... huh? And I mean, there's stuff that you laugh at in the film, but it's kind of one of those things that you laugh and then you feel bad for laughing, and then you question your own sanity about the fact whether or not you should feel bad for laughing or just laugh. That's all I can really say about the story, is that it's just weird. Basically, I felt like I was losing my mind. That's just how the film made me feel. It felt like I was going completely nuts. I was kind of like walking out of the film thinking like, am I that crazy? Of course, first thing I must let you know is that a lot of the psychopaths they show in the trailer and say like, oh, here's all the people. The only psychopaths that are featured prominently in the trailer that are actually part of the main story are, well, Sam Rockwell, Christopher Walken, Colin Farrell, the guy with the bunny, and Woody Harrelson. Those are like the only like major players. A lot of the other people they had on the posters that got like all this top billing, they're only in it for about 10 minutes. Again, that's more key value for you. I guess I kind of identified with this film because of my background in film, because the film at its heart is about a screenwriter, and I'm a writer, and so a lot of the stuff that the main character does, I really identified with. Now, from a technical standpoint, this film definitely has a lot of technical merits. I mean, it's shot very creatively. The shot style has kind of this creative, chaotic nature to it. Best way to describe it is that when they're telling stories of all these different psychopaths and all these different stories, you can tell like they have their own like unique style to them, their own unique color scheme to them, and everything else is kind of like realistic and contemporary in between. And the sound design also really complemented a lot of the chaotic natures of it all, because with these shots that look like they were lifted from other films, the sound design really complemented that. And it even goes a bit of the absurdist route. I mean, you see like things that are supposed to play out in like some sort of cliche, but then it's kind of like the thing where when reality comes in, the music stops, and it's not like some comedic sort of record scratch sort of thing. It's like, it just stops, because that's, well, reality. The dialogue isn't necessarily very Tarantino-esque. It's, well, parts of the dialogue are more interesting than others, so there is some pretty interesting dialogue that you could probably study the dialogue in a few certain scenes. But this film, you can definitely tell they put more of their emphasis on the visuals, as most filmmakers should. And so from a technical standpoint, this film is actually really well put together, and I wouldn't be surprised if they start studying this film in the film classes, because it definitely feels like one of those films that you're not supposed to watch and kind of be entertained. It's kind of one of those things that you're supposed to watch and you're supposed to try to analyze. And it's not like the whole Inception where you watch it again and again to try to get different meanings. It's kind of just one of the films that you watch it if you're trying to get into film. You're watching it, you're kind of analyzing, okay, here's how they did these shots for these segments, okay, here's how this person wrote these characters and how these characters react in these things. It's basically a film for film students. That's the best way I can describe it. If you're just the kind of normal mainstream moviegoer that likes going to like stuff to be entertained, I would not really recommend this film unless you have a really dark sense of humor. That's just the truth of it. If you have a really dark sense of humor and are kind of unhinged like these psychopaths, then you probably will like it. But if you're a mainstream moviegoer, probably not. But the film does stand out on a lot of its technical merits, and it definitely has a lot of things to look for if you're going into film. Like if you're wanting to be a screenwriter, if you're wanting to be a cinematographer, if you're wanting to go into film, period, then this is a film you will probably want to see and really think about. This isn't really a film to like look at and expect to be entertained, although there's some entertaining moments. It's really a film that's more to be studied. It's kind of like a piece of artwork. You don't really look at a piece of artwork to really like entertain yourself unless it's like a comic. This is just one of those things that you kind of look at, just kind of think, That's just how I can describe the film. It's a film that is just something that more that you study and analyze rather than necessarily watch for entertainment, despite what the trailers might lead you to believe. So overall, this film just left me with a very weird feeling. I didn't quite know how to feel about it. It was just kind of a case of, like I mentioned earlier, am I crazy? Am I kind of like these people? It's basically, it made me think. And I know this is kind of stupid to say, but I'm kind of the people that I wouldn't necessarily want to think. But that's just kind of how the film made me feel. It made me think about a lot of this stuff. And again, a lot of it may be just because I've studied film for like 2 years. And I know that's a short amount of time, but you get my point. If you're going into film, you'll probably enjoy it. If you're just kind of the mainstream moviegoer looking for general entertainment, something to just kind of point and laugh at, this really isn't the film for you. This is a film kind of, it's not for the weak-minded, it's not for those with a weak stomach who don't like a lot of gore. I mean, this is the kind of film that parents freak out about when they don't want their kids seeing rated R films. This feels like that kind of film. It has something, it's literally for adults. The story, although I could understand it, it still confused the heck out of me, so I'm basing this rating more on its technical merits. And so on my personal scale, I'm giving Seven Psychopaths a 4 out of 5. It's not a film for like a mainstream audience. It's more if you're really like going into film and are looking for something to kind of analyze, kind of if you're looking for a puzzle to kind of unravel that still has some like entertaining comedic bits to it, then you'll probably enjoy it. As for why I'm kind of dogging it, it's just, again, the story just left me feeling confused about myself, about my mind, about reality. But again, that might just be me. That's it for this week's episode of Romney's Reviews. Hopefully I've kept it really short because I've kind of got a lot of deadlines to meet up. Next week, Alex Cross, and sometime between either Saturday or Wednesday, it'll be Boris Karloff versus Kenneth Branagh, Frankenstein. See you then. If you're wondering why I'm wearing, well, this, I was doing a job shadow at EA earlier today. Because here in Utah, we actually have an office for electronic arts in Salt Lake. And basically, me and 2 other students were doing a job shadow, and we were meeting with some of the concept artists and modelers that work at Electronic Arts. And they're pretty nice people, and they're pretty cool people. We got to see some of their artwork. We got to try some of the tools they use, like the special tablets that are like the monitor stuff. We also got to look at the software they use, like Maya and ZBrush. It was really an interesting experience, and this is all for a college class, so yeah. And before any of you hassle me about oh, did you pick up any trade secrets or anything, I didn't, because the focus was more talking with the concept artists, and that was it. There wasn't really we didn't get to see any, oh, don't tell anybody about such and such, although we all did have to sign NDAs. We didn't really learn anything that you probably can't already Google. So yeah, no badgering about oh, what'd you learn at EA. It was merely just going, meeting the concept artists, kind of studying their process. And so if you're trolling for insider knowledge, go somewhere else. That's all I'm saying.